Take one. Hi, my name is Clayton Patterson. I'm an artist documentarian on the Lower East Side. I've lived here since 1979. And in documenting the neighborhood and the city, I've realized that one of the things that made New York great was most of the genius that came out of New York was connected to, in one way or another, to an inexpensive lifestyle and cheap rent. And if you go back over the people that have made major contributions to the city, just about all of those people fit in that category, whether it be a Jackson Pollock or a Charlie Parker or a Charlie Mingus or a Bob Dylan or a Jimi Hendrix or a Madonna or anybody that got their start in New York City that ended up making a great contribution to America and to our creative culture was connected to a cheap rent and inexpensive lifestyle. And what's happening is that that was for individuals and that was for the creative people that made great contributions. But there's also been the people that have had businesses that are really important to the city. And the one thing that made the city unique and wonderful and inspiring was all the individual small businesses that used to exist here. And I know myself as an artist, I used to be able to go to Canal Street and find any number of different opportunities to buy things that would stimulate my imagination, would add to my creativity. And, I'm originally from Western Canada. When I came here, it was like coming to a United Nations. The Lower East Side was so rich in ethnic diversity that all of a sudden I'm learning about pierogies and kielbasa and Russian baths and, Jewish food and dairy and the different delis and all these different kinds of foods. There was Russian and Polish and Ukrainian and Japanese and Chinese and Puerto Rican and Dominican, and there was American native things. And so it was just a huge education. And the education was free because the education was around me. Everything I participated in was a learning experience. Well, what we're getting now is, and especially after Bloomberg, who, by the way, took $1 a year in order to help save the city. Well, somehow with that $1 a year, that billionaire, when he came in, tripled his billions by the time he left. And the carnage that he made to the city is, I think he killed the golden goose. The golden goose was that creativity that the city had. Now, if I look at Ludlow Street, for example, all of the small businesses that were successful around on Ludlow between, let's say, Delancey and Houston, they all got thrown out. They all got pushed out. They all got, because of rising rent, they were no longer able to stay. So that was a Pink Pony and Max Fish, and the guitar store had to move. I've seen Amy's Hats that got started there be pushed out. I've seen stores, Earth Matters. Just the carnage has been tremendous, and those were all small businesses. And so the whole idea of America was pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, creating your own place in the world. That doesn't exist anymore. Bloomberg and Giuliani before him, and even really starting with Dinkins with the reorganization of the police department, has changed it and made it impossible for the little guy to come and be here. The American dream is starting to not exist anymore. The whole idea, I created the Clayton cap. We were the first people to put embroidery going around the cap. When I started this cap, there was a Yankee symbol in the front or a diesel power and some gold glued on, and that was it for the baseball cap. We changed the whole concept of the baseball cap, and I was able to do that because I was walking down Avenue A, and one day I saw this guy in this small little shop who created and made baseball caps. And so I went in there and said, wow, can you make me a baseball cap? Just to step back for a minute, if I was going to do that nowadays, I would have to go to China. I don't know China, I don't know the industry, I don't know the people there, and I would have to do it in large numbers. So walking down Avenue A, I see this guy, Ben Booksinger, and he's got this little tiny shop, and he makes baseball caps. I thought, wow, I can make a baseball cap. So could I have it with an orange peak and a black going around? Yeah, no problem. So he makes me the cap. And then next door, there was a guy called Mo who sold sporting goods. So I went in there to Mo, and he sold these, iron-on fabrics. So I made my first Clayton cap with a design that I ironed on. And then I realized that Ben made the jacket backs for the Savage Skull Nomads in the Bronx, and I saw those, and I realized that he could do drawings with an embroidery machine. I thought, wow. So can I give you we cut out the panels, can I do a different drawing in each panel? And he did it. And he did it in his own folksy way, which was great, but he was able to do that. And that was the beginning of the Clayton Cap. He was elderly, he retired, the place got pushed out, he got pushed out. And then Elsa, my wife, of over 40 years, we decided to make the baseball caps ourselves, and the baseball caps kept us alive. That's really important to this story. The baseball caps kept us alive. So what happened is we were able to buy the machinery, and Elsa was always a craft person and an artist, so I sort of came up with the vision and the concept of what the cap should be, and she came up with the skills and the ability to make it. And since she could draw well and was a crafts person, she learned how to use the machinery. And we were able to buy, you see, you have to remember when Koch was in power, the number one industry in New York at that time was the garment industry. By the time he left 3 terms later, the garment was finished in New York. All those jobs, that whole industry, that creativity, the fashion, that was all shipped overseas. And so we were able to buy the machinery cheap from all these businesses that were going under on Broadway, downtown New York. So we brought the Bonaz machine, which did the embroidery. We bought all the 5 different machines it took to make a baseball cap. We were able to get because of all these bankruptcy sales of the business being pushed out. Well, then as time went on, you got these sort of Ruth Messenger types and the Dinkins types that wanted to save small business. You know, the politicians always come in and talk like that. Chen talks about saving small business. Ruth Messenger at that time. Well, what happened is that the commercial rent tax became so high that at that time the landlord was forced to push up the rent because of the commercial rent tax. So he wasn't really making all the money at that point. The money was going to the city with this commercial rent tax. That was a real problem. So a lot of people were getting pushed out by that. But the point is, eventually all these small businesses got pushed out and under because after we got past the taxes and all of that, then we got into the gentrification factor. And the gentrification just came in, and the bottom line became the only thing. Once you get to a business corporate type like Bloomberg, the only thing that counts is the bottom line. Not the business, not how it works, not what it contributes to community. Well, you lose all of that. And so if I take the Lower East Side, my section, which is between Houston and Delancey, and if I go to a smaller section of that, the section where I live between Essex and Allen, that whole section, which used to be businesses, a lot of Jewish businesses, small stores, small businesses, like I say, on Ludlow, all those businesses got pushed out. That section became bars. Even though I'm living across the street from the school, that school is surrounded by bars. It should be illegal. Used to be a bar couldn't be within a bar of another bar within 500 yards. Well, everything here now is, we got probably 12 bars on Ludlow Street. They're next to each other, one after the other after the other. So the essence of that, of what I'm getting to, is we lost community. We lost the barber, we lost the baker, we lost the butcher, we lost the small bodegas, we lost the small coffee shops, we lost the small dry cleaner. We lost just about all of those businesses that make up a community. Well, community used to be important to New York. Now it's no longer important. What's important is corporate businesses. The Starbucks, the Dunkin' Donuts, the 7-Elevens, all the stuff that you can get anywhere in America. You have to remember the time that New York was thought of as an island unto itself, as a universe unto itself. It wasn't Europe, it wasn't really America. It was its own unique little essence. It's not that anymore. We could be in Kansas for the stuff that we can buy here. And so we traded all, you don't have pearl paint anymore. All of the things that fed creative people have almost all disappeared. And that's putting this city in crisis. You know, you have to remember, after World War II, the Muse left Paris and it came to New York. If you were an artist and you went to Paris after World War II, you made a mistake. You should have come to New York. Well, the Muse has left New York because to be an artist here, you can't survive and do your work and do your creativity. And most of the creativity always came from the ground up. That is lost now. Now you got to fit into the corporate world. The corporate world is not the world that feeds the imagination. It's not the place that you have access to. It's not the American dream. It's just getting a job and working within a structure. And we're losing all of that. We're losing our individual architecture. You know, even the building that the Folk Art Museum was in, that's being torn down. Our neighborhood used to have a skyline of 6 stories. Eventually we're having 27-story hotels. So these 27 stories hotel gutted the neighborhood. The Lower East Side was a place where immigrants came and got started. They started their own businesses. that is disappearing, because if you come here now, you're going to be either working for the hotel or for some corporation or for IBM or whoever, but you're not going to be able to start it off on your own. I could never be me again. I could never have the Clayton cap again. And that is over. Access to property is over. You know, what saved us is that I realized when Reagan got into power and all this Chinese money was crossing Canal Street and was buying up the Lower East Side, and that's what fueled it in the beginning, I realized that we could never be here. So I said to Elsa, you know, we have to try to buy something, otherwise we're not going to be able to survive here. And so we eventually found this two-story building on Lower East Side, and the concept was, and it was a concept that was understandable, is that the first floor, which had a business in it, would pay for the mortgage, and the second floor we could live in, so that would stabilize us. And even though our income wasn't adequate to really get a mortgage, because of the building and how it was structured, it was possible. So anyway, we were able to buy this building, and that kept us alive. But we had to go to 42 banks. Eventually, Elsa went up to the vice president of Citibank, talked to the secretary talked to the vice president, and eventually we got a mortgage. I could never do that now. In this world, it's impossible. I could never be me again. And if we hadn't purchased this property, we would have never been able to stay here. And so that's what we're losing in New York. And you know, New York was about the roots. It was about the ground up. That's finished. It's over. It's goodbye. Save New York. Help us save New York. We have to do something to save the small businesses. We got to step back on these international corporations. These Excels that come over, they're owned by who knows who. People, the Saudis. It's like it's an international corporation. It's not New York. Let's make New York for New York. I'm being pushed out. I'm on the verge of leaving. New York is trying to force me out, and I'm trying to stay, but it's very difficult. And the brutality, actually, I wrote about it in The Villager. You can read about it, the Taylor Mead story. When they came in on the block and were pushing that out, an 83-year-old man that lived on the 5th floor, they left it so he was one of the only 2 tenants left in the building. The door to the roof was open. It was totally, there was no security in the building. There was construction from 7 in the morning till 6 at night. He lived in that mess. There was drilling holes through his walls. The dust was killing him. So it was actually a form of gentrification and murder. And through a lot of pushing and shoving, we were able to save his situation and get him out of there and get him paid. But otherwise, they would have killed him. So this gentrification is not only killing the American dream, it's also wiping out the people. And I knew people that were down here in places like Suffolk Street and like that. Their families are there for 100 years. They're gone. When a guy like Economakis comes into 45, 47 East 3rd Street and buys a 2-story, and we're not talking about a one tenement, we're talking about 2 tenements side by side, and is able to kick out the 15 tenements that had been long-term tenements, and kids had grown up in the building from babies to now they're in their 20s, they're all forced out because one man and his wife and his couple of children wanted that for his own personal mansion. So they were able to kick out the 15 families, and one man could have a double-wide 2-story, 6-story tenement on East 3rd Street. So that's how the city is being decimated, where we forgot the people. People are what made New York and America great, not the corporations, not these hustling politicians that are pushing NYU's take over the neighborhood and all these people. It isn't them. It's us, the people, the real people, the roots. That's what we need. Thank you for listening.